In this video, I'm going to share 5 powerful steps to overcome emotional pain and heal. Now, I know all about emotional pain. I had a lot of emotional pain suppressed in my body that led me to become a very angry person. By the time I was about 11 or 12, I started developing anger problems that got worse as I aged and went through the teenage years. Some would even call me a psycho. I was pretty angry and short-tempered. And the reason I was just so angry was because of the emotional pain that I had suppressed in my body. So I'm going to share a little bit about me, not too much because I don't want to drag the video out, but I want to share some personal stories about me that led me to have this emotional pain. And then I'm going to share 5 powerful steps that I know works because I've applied these steps myself. And I have done a lot of healing work over the last 5 years. So firstly, I was born into a broken home. My parents split while my mum was pregnant with me because my dad would get violent with her, and he got violent with her while she was pregnant with me, so she decided to leave. Now, my dad is not a bad man. He is someone that had a very abusive childhood, and he grew up watching his dad bash his mum as well. So it's just one of those generational traumas that gets passed down. And I learned to forgive my dad and let all that go. So I was born into a broken home. I was physically abandoned by my dad. My dad moved to another country when I was maybe about 1 or 2, and he lived there until I was about 12. So because he physically wasn't around, he also emotionally abandoned me. So there's physical abandonment where your parents physically not there, and then there's emotional abandonment, which I think a lot of children, not all children, but I think there's a lot of children that have been emotionally abandoned that have now grown up as an adult that has an emotional abandonment wound and may not even be aware of it. So my dad physically abandoned me, which also emotionally abandoned me. My mum also emotionally abandoned me. So both of my parents emotionally abandoned me. And there was a time where I was about 5 or 6 where I was upset and crying because of my older brother who used to kind of bully me a wee bit. And I was upset, I was crying, and there was two different experiences of this. One was with my mum, one was with my dad. So I'm 5, 6 years old, I'm crying because my brother's being mean, and both my parents, with these separate situations, basically didn't care. They didn't care that I was crying and upset. It was more like, stop crying, and they didn't even deal with my brother. They didn't care, basically. So the message that got sent to me as this little child was, no one cares if I'm upset. No one cares, if my brother's bullying me or whatever. So I started just bottling everything up, keeping it to myself. And that's what led me to suppress emotional pain in my body until it started just coming out as anger, right? So I'm going to share some very powerful tips now. We're going to get straight into it. The first one, this is going to be the most valuable tip that I share in this whole video, but watch the whole video because these other tips that follow are going to just flow very perfectly all together. That's really going to level you up and help you heal this emotional pain. So the first tip is to feel it. What I mean by that is using Dr. David Hawkins' letting go technique. His letting go technique, he talks about it in his book, Letting Go. And this book teaches you how to deal with your emotions. He says we all have repressed and suppressed emotions in our body, and this repressed and suppressed emotions in our body is what's keeping us in the lower frequencies. It's causing a lot of problems in our life. For example, it makes us very reactive to the outer environment. It can cause problems with our relationships when we're arguing with people, and it can cause problems with developing disease and illness in the body, right? So because we have all this suppressed emotions in the body, we need to release it. And the way you release it is by using the letting go technique. And it's a very simple technique. So what you do is when you have emotional pain coming up, you've got negative emotions coming up, what a lot of us do is we actually resist it. We don't want to deal with the negative emotion, and we try and find things to distract ourselves, or, things to make ourselves feel better in the external environment. I was guilty of being an emotional eater. So if I was feeling these negative emotions, I would eat bad foods to make myself feel better, which didn't really work that well. So the key is to accept how you feel. So if you have emotional pain or, negative emotion coming up, accept how you feel and allow it to be there instead of resisting it. So you just allow this emotion to be there, sit with it, be present with it, tune into your body, and instead of thinking of it as an emotion, just be curious and tune into the body and just think of it as sensations in the body and just observe the sensations in the body. Because you aren't your emotions, you can observe your emotions, right? And by applying this technique where you accept that's how you feel, you allow the emotion to be there, you sit with it and be present with it, you observe it, what happens is the emotion will eventually clear itself out. And as it clears itself out, it leaves you feeling lighter, more high vibrational. So you want to use this technique to release the repressed and suppressed emotions that are already in our body, but also use it in your day-to-day life. So whenever you're just doing whatever during the day, you've got a negative emotion coming up, or something's caused you to be in this negative state, use the letting go technique. Like, oh, I'm feeling negative right now. Okay, I accept this is how I feel. Allow it to be there. And this is how you'll deal with your emotions. And then as you start clearing these suppressed and repressed emotions out, what will happen over time is you're going to start becoming a happier person, because those emotions are no longer stored in the body, bringing you down into those lower frequencies. So if you want to learn more in depth about the letting go technique, I recommend reading Dr. David Hawkins' book, Letting Go. Now we're going to move on to step number 2. And step number 2 is acceptance. So as you can see on Dr. David Hawkins' scale, acceptance is a high vibrational frequency. And so by accepting the negative situations that's happened in your life, so for example, I accept that my parents split up when I was born. I accept that they're the way that they are. I accept my painful past. I accept it, instead of being angry about it. So as you can see on the scale of consciousness, anger is a much lower frequency than acceptance. So when you start just accepting these things, these past hurts that have happened to you, it's going to uplift you. It's going to raise your vibration. And that's going to lead into my 3rd step, which is the reframe technique. So this is a powerful healing technique that I also learned from the book Letting Go. And this is where you change the meaning that you give things. So firstly, everything in life is neutral. There is no built-in meaning. It is you who gives things meaning. And I'll share an example of this. So we'll use dogs. Some people don't like dogs. They give dogs a negative meaning. They're just very slobbery and they put fur all over the furniture and they're stinky. I don't like dogs. And then you have someone that loves dogs, so they give dogs a positive meaning. Dogs are great, they're man's best friend, they're really loyal, they guard the property. And so there's no built-in meaning. It's you that's giving these things meaning. So the reframe technique is where you change the meaning that you give things. So when someone does us wrong, they betray us or, cause us emotional pain in whatever type of way, we usually will give it a negative meaning. So for example, I had someone betray me 2 years ago. This was someone I was friends with for 5 years, and I thought I could trust this person, and they did me dirty. They betrayed me, and so I could have given that a negative meaning and been like, I'm this victim, this person's betrayed me, they screwed me over, and fuck that person. The meaning you give things controls your emotional state. So if I give it that negative meaning, it's going to cause me to be in this negative emotional state of anger and resentment, right? However, I didn't give it a negative meaning because I'm aware of this sort of work, so I decided to give it a positive meaning. So you change the meaning by looking for how the negative situation served you. What did you learn from this? So again, I'll use the same example. Instead of looking at myself as being this victim that got taken advantage of, I was like, oh, well, this person has showed me their true character. I am so glad that after being friends with this person for 5 years, I now see who they really are. I see their character, and that is not someone that I want around me. So that's one positive meaning I gave it. Another positive meaning was I looked at the situation and how this served me, and I realized, oh shit, I wasn't embodying my self-worth during this time. So I realized I need to work on embodying my self-worth. So that was a lesson that I learned. You need to start embodying your worthiness. The third lesson I learned was I needed to shed the people-pleasing mentality. I had this people-pleasing mentality that was linked to my childhood traumas and how I was treated as a kid, and one of those things was also the abandonment wound. And I realized, man, I was in this people-pleasing mentality and I need to stop this shit, right? So I started doing the work. I healed my abandonment wound. And as I healed my abandonment wound and started shedding the people-pleasing mentality, I noticed the shifts within me as a person. I now do not people-please other people because of that situation where I was screwed over. So that's another lesson. So you see, you look for how it served you and what you got out of it. You give it that positive meaning because the meaning you give things controls your emotional state. So because I give it these positive meanings, I can feel more positive about the situation and let it go. And this is going to go into step number 4, which is forgiveness. Now, forgiveness is for you. It is not about the other person. Some people think that forgiveness is letting that person off the hook. Oh, no, 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 no. Forgiveness is for you because it's an energetic release. When you are like in the energy of fuck that person because they betrayed me and they did me wrong, it puts you in that negative emotional state and you're clinging on to emotions like anger and resentment, and that anger and resentment is only going to negatively affect you. I know all about this because I was a very angry person that clung on to grudges. Fuck this person for what they did. Like I've held on to grudges for like 10 years towards people. Fuck you, man, you know? And it doesn't serve you. It just keeps you in these low negative frequencies. And honestly, I was miserable. I wasn't a happy person at all. So when I started learning to forgive, realizing it's an energetic release where you release these stored emotions of anger and resentment, it frees you up energetically. It raises your vibration. So I had to go through the process of forgiving my dad because I had a lot of anger and resentment towards my dad. I didn't speak to him for about 10 or so years, and then I finally decided to forgive and let it go. Man, I felt that energetic release from my chest. I felt so much lighter. And as I forgave and released this energy, I naturally became a happier person. I was no longer as angry as I used to be. So realize forgiveness is for you. It's not about the other person. It's an energetic release, so it frees up your energy and will raise your vibration. Now, you can forgive people without having them back in your life. You can forgive people without even telling them that you forgive them because it's not about them. It's about you. So I've forgiven people without talking to them ever again, without telling them that I forgive them and it's okay. Forgiveness is for you. So in order to get to that place of forgiveness, you use the reframe technique. Reframe it by looking for how the situation served you and what you learned from it so you can grow and evolve as a person. And that's what will help you get to that place of forgiveness and letting it go. And it's also important to not only forgive others, but forgive yourself. We need to forgive ourselves as well and have that compassion towards ourselves. Number 5 is a daily gratitude practice. Now, this is an extremely simple practice to do that's also really powerful because if you're like me, where you grew up with a lot of negativity and childhood wounds and emotional pain, it causes you to have this negative view on life. By incorporating a daily gratitude practice, It starts to reprogram your mind into noticing the blessings that you have in your life. Wow, I've got so many blessings. I've got so many things to actually be grateful for, and it will start shifting your emotional state. So all you need to do is just, what I like to do is, when I wake up in the morning, I think of 3 things that I'm grateful for. And then right before going to sleep, think of 3 things that happened during the day that you were grateful for. And commit to doing this every single day. It's going to start shifting your mind and shifting your focus to blessings, and you'll start noticing more things in your life that you can be grateful for. It's going to start shifting your emotional state and realize you have a lot of cool things to be happy about. And that's going to help you to shift out of the negative state of poor me, I'm a victim, my life sucks. And gratitude is also a high vibrational frequency. So whatever frequency you're tuned into is the reflection you get back. When you operate in genuine gratitude for what you have in your life, by the laws of the universe, you will attract in more things to be grateful for. So those are my 5 powerful steps for overcoming emotional pain and healing. And I know these steps work because I've been applying this work for the last 5 years. I've gone from being a very angry person that some people would call a psycho to someone that's a lot more calmer and more chill. Now, healing is not linear. So healing, you'll never be fully healed. There's always healing work to do, and it can feel like you're taking steps forward and then steps backwards. And I want to share what Bashar said about this, because I think the way he explained it, I think it was a great way he explained it that really shifted my perspective about it. So when you feel like you're taking steps backwards, you feel like you've done all this work and then you're back to where you were, he says it's not like going up, down, like that. It's more like you're going up and then you come down, then you go up, then you come down, then you go up, and then you come down. So when you come down, you're still higher than where you originally were. So you're still progressing with your healing, even if it feels like you're taking steps backwards. So realize that's normal. Healing is not linear. It is the best work you could do on yourself that's really going to improve your life. So I hope you liked this video, and if you did, let me know by hitting the like button or write a comment. If you like this sort of content, make sure you subscribe, hit the bell notification, and if you want to learn more about healing, I have a video on healing the ego that will share more healing practices and techniques that you can apply. So if you do want to learn more, I'll link the video here. Have an awesome day. Peace.